Aston Villa finished in an impressive 7th place last season, securing Conference League football for the club, the first time the Villains have had any European football since 2010. Now, after the exploits of West Ham in the Conference League, in which they went all the way to the final beating Fiorentina, you'd expect Aston Villa to be the favourites for the competition next year, especially considering the European pedigree of their manager Unai Emery. And I definitely think there's something brewing next season at Villa Park, because if you go out and get some proven first team quality, and then some Premier League proven players to improve the squad depth, I definitely think there's a chance that Villa could challenge for both the Conference League and break into the top 6 next season. And ultimately, it might not come to fruition, but why not go out swinging this summer? So therefore, I've suggested 5 signings in 5 key areas which I think Villa need to improve. I've gone for the centre-back, the right-back, left midfield, right midfield, and striker. I'm not going to talk about the middle of the park because I think after signing Jurgen Tielemans from Leicester, who can play as a 10 and an 8, maybe that Villa don't need midfield reinforcements as much. I'm also not going to talk about the backup goalkeeper to Emi Martinez, who I think also could be improved on, but frankly it's boring and I don't know who you would get as a backup goalkeeper. So those are the 5 areas I'm going to suggest. I'm going to start off with the centre-back, and I'm going to suggest Pau Torres, and this feels like an absolute tap-in because the club have already been heavily linked to him in the papers. So he's a 26-year-old Spanish left-back who stands at 6'3" and he's left-footed, so it's a perfect profile for Aston Villa. A first-team quality player who can come in and replace Tyrone Mings. He's also on the left-hand side of the defence, so you've got on the right side you could have Diego Carlos coming back from his injury, as well as Ezri Konsa, who was impressive towards the back end of last season. And his progressive carries, his progressive passes, and successful take-ons are all within the 96 and above percentile on FPREF, which are all very impressive numbers considering Aston Villa are hopefully going to be more on the board next season in the Conference League and in the Premier League. And it's one where the rumours are that he's going to be roughly around 45 to 40 million euros. And I think that's definitely achievable for Aston Villa because, as I said, he's a good age, he's 26, he's going to be coming into the peak years of his prime. He was really heavily linked to clubs like Man United and Spurs only last summer, and then the move didn't quite materialise, and therefore his price has dropped because his contract expires next year. I definitely think Aston Villa is a perfect club for him. He speaks Spanish, which is perfect because Unai Emery is Spanish himself. The link, it just kind of seems like an obvious choice, and I think Aston Villa should definitely go out and sign Pau Torres this summer. And then right back, I'm going to be suggesting Kyle Walker-Peters from Southampton. Obviously, the English right back can play right back and also cover a left back as well if needed. He made 31 appearances for Southampton last season, scoring 1 goal, getting no assists in the side which ended up ultimately getting relegated. And obviously, the elephant in the room, if a player's just been relegated with the club, is he good enough to be stepping up to European football? However, I would look at the players of like Gini Wijnaldum, James Maddison, who's been linked with moves, Yuri Tielemans, you've just signed from Leicester. I think there are quality players who do get relegated, and that shouldn't put you off, especially considering he's a defender in the side that got relegated, conceded many goals, and that could be a worry, but I'd argue he's actually been one of Southampton's best players last season. He was an England international, made his international debut last March only. So in a year, his stock has the team have dropped off quite a bit, but his stock actually I think has remained quite high. And I think you get him for around 15 to 20 million pounds. I think Southampton unfortunately can't charge as much as they would like for him because of the fact they've been relegated, like I mentioned. And I think it's one where he can definitely improve Villa because unfortunately Ashley Young, Villa decided not to renew his contract, which I thought was a bit of a surprise. Despite his age profile being on the very old side, I think he actually did really well and deserved a 1-year extension at least. Matty Cash has not seemed in favour under Unai Emery, and it kind of seems like one where he might be back up to someone who's coming in, or he might eventually be moved on completely. And I think also with Kyle Walker-Peters being 26, it doesn't happen the development of the youth players as well, which I think is very important for Villa fans. You've got the right back Kane Kessler-Hayden, who's a 20-year-old who's in the academy at the moment, playing with the under-21s, who could actually maybe do with a loan spell next season to gain some more experience. But he's one who looks extremely promising, and you don't want to be hampering his development by signing a 22-year-old, someone like Ivan Fresneda, who's an 18-year-old, and I think that would just clash. I think Kyle Walker-Peters is the right profile, 2 England caps, maybe he can achieve that again with some more European football. With Villa, I think he's going to be first choice, compete with Matty Cash, and ultimately he's Premier League proven, so you know he's going to do the job and not let you down. And on the right wing, I'm going to suggest Samuel Chukwueze of Villarreal, again similar to Pau Torres. This time he is a 24-year-old Nigerian international who's a left-footed right winger, played 37 times for Villarreal in La Liga last year, 6 goals, 5 assists. Again, similar to Pau Torres, very similar situation. He's got 1 year left on his deal. It looks like he's unlikely to sign, and Villarreal could have no choice but to sell him this summer to avoid losing him on a free next year, especially considering a lot of the La Liga teams don't have too much money outside of Real Madrid and Barcelona, depending on how they shift the finances. But last year he was incredibly impressive. Based on his FP ref stats, he had 5.12 progressive carries, 3.31 successful take-ons, 5.5 touches in the opponent's penalty area, and 10.04 progressive passes per 90 last year, which is all incredibly impressive for a forward player. And I definitely think he's an upgrade on Leon Bailey, who's not quite clinical enough in the final third, I don't think. And he's definitely an upgrade on Bertrand Traore, who's just kind of a bit part player last season. Obviously, Samuel Chukwueze is going to cost a lot of money. I mean, of course he is. He was second for dribbles last year, only behind Vinicius Jr. in La Liga. And also, who can forget, he scored that incredibly impressive hat-trick at the Bernabeu. So it's one where, again, similar to Pau Torres, he is a former player who knows Unai Emery, knows how he plays. Unai Emery knows him, so he's going to be a good addition to the team. I think it's reported that there's a release clause in his contract of about 80 million euros, and that's not confirmed. That's a rumour and speculation. That is way too high. Aston Villa aren't going to pay that. No team is going to pay that. I think realistically, if Villarreal are going to sell him this summer and get any kind of money for him, I think maybe 40 million euros is probably going to be more realistic, somewhere where the buying club and the selling club can agree. Again, that's maybe potentially 80 million on 2 players from Villarreal for Aston Villa, but ultimately I think he's a quality signing, a definite upgrade in the right wing position, and a player who could really show his qualities next season at Villa Park. On the left wing, I'm suggesting Wilfried Zaha, and the whole transfer saga around Zaha at the moment has been incredibly confusing. He's been linked to clubs like PSG and to Roma, but also most recently to Saudi Arabia. And it's one where maybe Zaha thought he's going to have more offers on the table than he actually has had. But because of the fact that I think he's 30 years old, I think there's a lot of teams who are quite sorted for the left winger position. Even Aston Villa, who played Jacob Ramsey there last year. They don't necessarily need Zaha, I don't think. But I think on a free transfer, he's permanently proven. Of course, something block is he is 30 years old. It's going to be demanding a high a signing on bonus as well as a high salary. And he only scored 7 goals and 2 assists last season, and you could probably find better value elsewhere. However, he was the main man for many years at Crystal Palace. Obviously, Aston Villa have signed Yuri Tielemans on a free transfer from Leicester. And I think another Premier League proven free transfer could be the way to go, because not only can he play on the left hand side, he could also be back up to Ollie Watkins if the club decides not to sign a striker, because it may cost too much money, and his versatility could be something that Unai Emery could definitely utilise at the club next season with the increased game time of European competition as well. I don't think this is one where a lot of Villa fans are going to be happy about it per se, but I definitely think this is the shrewd, smart signing that Villa should probably think about making. I know his salary might be high. You don't necessarily have to sign him on a long-term deal, maybe 3 years, and you get him out of the club after that and you sign someone else or promote someone from your youth. However, I do think that adding quality into areas on a free transfer, I don't think it's the worst idea in the world. So I'm going to suggest Wilfried Zaha for the left wing position. And up front, I'm going to be suggesting Folarin Balogun. And there's been a lot of talk surrounding Balogun, especially after he decided he's going to play for the US men's national team rather than play for England. However, the Arsenal striker, who's on loan at Stade Rennes, is definitely going to be moving this summer. He himself has confirmed he's going to be leaving Arsenal this summer. Doesn't want to stay because he wants first team action. And he said he's not going to be going out on loan. He doesn't want that to happen. He wants to get a permanent move. And I think Aston Villa is actually the perfect club for him. Because although he scored in 37 matches, he had an impressive 21 goals and 2 assists. It was actually his first season in which he's really had a breakthrough year. And so I don't think too many top European sides are going to be aiming for him this year, because I think a few have reported around 30 to 40 million. Again, a lot of money for someone who's had one incredible year. But it was an incredible year. Even though he scored 21 goals and 2 assists, he actually underperformed his expected numbers. His XG was actually 26.6. and his expected assists were actually 3.8. So if you take that into account, he could have had potentially 30 goal and assist involvements in the league last year. Obviously, it was in the French league, so obviously there's something to take into account, especially if you see Alexander Lacazette tearing it up and scoring 27 goals in that league. He could barely feature for the Arsenal side the last time he was there. And, it is a young hungry player, an international reputation. And it's one where he doesn't have to necessarily be the main man straight away at Villa Park. Ollie Watkins is definitely the number 9, definitely the main man for Unai Emery. And having someone like Fowler and Balogun as a backup to him could be an incredible option to have next year. In a situation where you could also play them two up top together, you could play Ollie Watkins on the left, you could play Balogun on up front. But I think it allows, again, having him, it allows you to utilise Ollie Watkins' versatility. Of course, he's best up front, but you could push him out to the left if you need to do a job out there. And again, it's all about buying players who are a little bit versatile. That's why I also suggested both with Zaha, because I think that in a world where you might not be able to sign all of the players you want to do this summer, buying versatile players. Tielemans is a great example already. He can play as a 6, kind of. An 8 and a 10 though is prominent positions, and I think that's maybe what you're going to have to do this summer, because ultimately that was a lot of money. If you go run through it again, Pau Torres, 40 million euros potentially, Carl Walker-Peters, 20 million pounds, Chukwueze might be 30 to 40 million euros, Balogun might be 40 million euros. And of course, I don't expect all of these signings to come off completely. Obviously, this is my opinion. This is just me having a bit of fun. I don't necessarily think all these signings are going to happen. I think Pau Torres is more or less shoo-in going to happen to Villa. I mean, this is, again, like I said, my opinion. But I think the fact that you got Unai Emery as manager there, who's who's managed him as a player, and I think the fact that he wants to move 1 year left, I think that's a shoo-in. Chukwueze, I'm going to say second, is going to be the next likely to actually happen, but apart from that, we're going to have to wait and see. And unfortunately, it has gone a bit quiet, maybe a little bit concerning for Villa fans, ever since the fact that Tielemans had signed. And I think it's just the fact because the Euro under 21 internationals are going on right now, so a lot of players there, and it's quite hard to do a bit of business. But we're a few days away from July 1st when the transfer window officially opens. We're about roughly 6 weeks away from when the Premier League season opens. And I definitely think Aston Villa have a chance of competing with the top 6 and also winning the Conference League next year. Let me know what you guys think. I think, if I'm being honest, it's unrealistic to think Villa are going to break into the top 6. But if you go out, spend a bit of money, get some quality players in, I definitely think you have a chance. So why not?